we sent him a big thing of flowers every night with thanks for the music you've given us written on it. Every night, every show. Around the fifth show, he's getting ready to go on. We're all in the dressing room, hiding from Miles because we're not allowed to be out there. And he opens the door and he goes, Spyro Gyra. Okay. Closes the door, walks on. So we had the Pope's blessing. Hi, I'm Jay Beckenstein. I play saxophone with Spyro Gyra. You're watching Musicians Reveal with Joe Kelley.
Welcome to Musicians Reveal. Extremely excited this afternoon/evening. A longtime world-class musician, founder of one of the top jazz funk fusion bands, still going strong over 50 years, although they're still celebrating the 50 year, but they're out on the road. He's the founder of the band and still going strong. Jay Beckenstein, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's our 51st year now. It's our booking agent that wants to keep it our 50th anniversary.
Yeah, I know. I caught that. And I said, hey, you got the album to push too. So
whatever works.
That's right. So we were talking off air. You're getting ready to go back on the road, when aren't you on the road?
Well, we've never come off the road. The only exception to that was the COVID year.
Right.
I certainly found out in the COVID year that I didn't like to be off the road.
Oh, really? Okay.
When it first happened after, I don't know, at that point it was 46, 47 years of going out, more than 60 concerts a year, every year, and sometimes much more. When COVID first happened, and it was a bit of a story too, because we were in Russia when it happened. So that's a whole other thing.
Wow.
But we got out, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, finally a real vacation. Maybe I can explore an alternative life. I want to paint. I want to garden. I want to cook. All okay. It was all okay. But 6 months into it, boy, did I ever miss playing music with my friends and being in contact with people and being in contact with an audience that was interested in what we were doing. I missed it all so very much.
So there was so much uncertainty. Did you do any collaborations online, like recording at all?
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, the band put out I think 3 songs as all playing online in this sort of format, but with recording.
Wow. And of course, you guys don't have to fight for gigs because you're so well established in the business. But
yeah. Oh, it's never about fighting for gigs. It's about fighting for money.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
And that is, believe me, a constant battle. It is called survival.
Right. But you still got your buddy Phil Brennan standing up for you guys, right?
Yeah, Phil has been Phil's our manager. Phil and I were college roommates.
Oh, wow. Okay. I know you go back far, but yeah.
Be together in the 60s.
Wow.
Or the very early 70s. And initially, when the whole Spyro thing hit, I said, come on, let me employ Phil. He's a great dude. And Phil, at first, drove a truck, and then he did lights, and then he road managed, and then he business managed, and that he became the go-to guy for everything for Spyro Gyra. And now he's just officially the band's manager. But that was a great thing to have my buddy be in it the whole time.
Wow. And obviously you guys don't get on each other's nerves too much.
Oh yeah, we do.
Oh, okay.
Between Phil and I, most decisions are made. Things as esoteric as liner notes and what the album cover is going to be and whether this song or that song should be in the set. Phil has strong opinions about all of those things. And of course, I have strong opinions about all of those things. So Phil and I butt heads all the time. But in the end, the process has good results. I mean, we counter each other.
Right. Does Phil play an instrument?
Does he play us with the internet?
Okay.
Yeah, no, he
Does
does not.
everything else well.
But Phil is more of a music lover than I am. So
Okay.
there.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect team. You've got a really interesting start into music and growing up. You were born in Long Island, I believe.
I was born in Brooklyn,
Brooklyn. Okay. And then moved
you
to
know,
Long Island, right?
to Long Island. I think I
Yeah.
probably was 7 or 8.
Okay. And I
Uh,
remember,
I, I grew up early. I still have memories of my father loving the Brooklyn Dodgers.
oh,
That
yeah.
must have been 6 when the Brooklyn Dodgers won the World Series against the Yankees.
Right.
And my father loved jazz. I mean, he was a complete jazz freak. So, oddly enough, the two heroes, my father's two heroes, were Charlie Parker and Jackie Robinson.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. My dad was a Dodger fan. And then he became a Mets fan, and I became a Mets fan. So,
Yeah, very, very. That's very typical. You know, I think it was Sandy Koufax that kept me with the Dodgers. But more than that, I when I finally got married,
mhm.
my wife's father had scouted for the Dodgers,
Oh, okay. Wow.
and the Dodgers were very gracious about comping us games on our honeymoon and whatnot.
Wow.
So I I sort of officially became an LA Dodger fan. But yes, so in my heart, it's still Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, you represent for the Brooklyn and will always will. So, yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, in your senior year of high school, you went to Germany. And what was the thinking behind that with your family?
My father got offered a corporate job over there,
Okay.
built a factory. I think it was for either the Singer Corporation or the Siemens Corporation or both. The building of the factory was going to take a year.
Hmm.
So we got on a boat, put all our belongings on the boat, and moved to Germany. We lived near Nuremberg in a town called Erlangen,
Okay.
little town, little house. Um, and because I didn't speak German, I kind of do now. I
Yeah,
mean, I
no, sorry.
learned
Yeah.
German when I was a lot of German when I was there. Uh, but initially, I went to school on a U.S. Army base at the
Oh, okay.
American Independence School in Nuremberg. So I graduated from an American military high school or whatever in Germany.
What
And then
did you?
what
Okay.
brought me to Buffalo was that my parents remained in Germany, but my mom's an identical twin, and her
Oh,
identical
okay.
twin, my other mom,
Hmm.
lived in Tonawanda, New York. So they shipped me off to a school in Buffalo.
Went to college there, survived the winters, and
They
what
weren't
was your?
that different from Germany.
Okay, so you were well prepared. Do you still make it back to Buffalo occasionally?
I do, at least every year.
Okay.
And the place still has really nice memories for me. Unfortunately, you live as long as Spyro Gyra has. A lot of people who are older than us when we started out, they pass away. I've lost a lot of friends in Buffalo.
Did you ever run into Rick James in Buffalo?
Were you prompted to ask this?
No, I'm a Rick James fan. So
You're kidding me. Really?
yeah.
uh, I have deep stories about Rick James.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, when we were cutting our first album in Clarence, New York, Rick was still working in Toronto,
Oh, okay.
and because he had been dodging the draft,
Right. Yeah.
so Buffalo was a sensible place for him to sneak in and out of the country. So he bought studio time from us to do "Come Get It," the record.
Right.
Um, and that was done in a little studio in Clarence, New York, where we were doing the first Spyro record, and we were getting we were paying for our record by giving him time. Anyway, I watched that record go down. I played on it. Jeremy from the band arranged strings on it. There were no credits for us, but I
Okay.
got to play with the Brecker brothers.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and I watched Rick make that record, and it was an amazing thing. Now, we all know what happened to Rick.
Yep.
Um, but I had no idea at the time that there was anything about Rick that was anything other than kind of bigger than life, big time glamorous something or other. He dressed big, he did everything big.
Right.
So Spyro does well. Many years later, I'm in LA. I go, I have Rick James's number. Let me call him. So I call him. Sure enough, he answers the phone. He recognizes who I am, and he says, "Hey, I'm going up to Motown today. Want to come with me? I think, I'm going to have a meeting with Berry Gordy." And I said, "What the heck? Sure." So Rick pulls up in a yellow sports car, um, and we go zipping up to, I think it was probably Burbank or the Valley or somewhere up there. And sure enough, we're marched into Berry Gordy's office, and there he is sitting behind a big desk, big record exec room. Um, and I get introduced by Rick, and Barry says, "Oh, I've heard your music, very very nice. You guys are real musicians. Blah blah blah. My best wishes, whatever."
Right.
And Rick, at that point, excuses himself. I think just to go out and snort blow in the bathroom.
Right.
And Mr. Gordy leans over the table at me and says, "You seem like a nice guy. Don't hang with this guy. He's bad news." And
Right.
that was my first inkling that, whoa, what's with Rick?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the highlight of that day actually was meeting Smokey Robinson down the hall.
Oh wow. Yeah. Great singer songwriter, and another
But
one
that's
still going.
that's
Yeah.
that's the extent of my Rick stuff.
Yeah. It
Um,
just came to my mind, the Buffalo connection. I was just curious to see, and you
yeah,
did have a lot of experiences,
I
the
I
good stuff.
I hung out with Rick for many many hours when he was um, incandescently creative.
Mm, okay.
He had it. He had a thing. That record had force, power. Um, it was coming right from him, right from his stand in the studio. You could see it, and it was very inspirational. So then, when the flip side of it, oh, Rick is putting cigarettes out on women.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Yeah. I saw him like three or four times in just amazing shows. I didn't know how he kept it up. Yeah.
And back in the Toronto days, he worked with Neil Young.
Yeah, that's true. The legend, he taught him guitar or something like that.
He had some very other connections than what he ended up coming out with. Anyway, we
Yeah.
we we digress.
Yeah, yeah. Let me pull it back into Spyro Gyra and the upcoming road
Rick's,
which you're going out. You're going
Rick
to
is more interesting.
spyrogyra.com, and the dates, they're going to be all over the place. And are you playing a bunch of festivals? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I can't remember what they are. I
Right.
really. Uh, we play everything. I
Mhm.
mean everything. But right now, with including Hawaii, it's all domestic.
Yeah.
We're not overseas this year, and that's the first time in quite a while.
Which country would you say really goes over the top with Spyro Gyra music? Any countries stand out in Europe?
Yeah. Well, I'd say the one we play the most is the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
We like us in the Netherlands,
Right.
and Germany right behind that.
I saw that concert you did for WDR, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's when heard you speak in German. That was really cool.
ich habe in Deutsch gesprochen, ja.
Yeah, yeah. You gave like the little asides between songs and everything. That was really nice.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Uh, when I first did it, our German booking agency agency representative just said, "Oh my God, your pronunciation is so good and your grammar is so horrible." And and so uh, in my time off, between gigs, I sit there with my phone going, "How do you say you've been a wonderful audience in German?" And and I I write down all my stage lines, but when I do say them, I'm very understandable because having lived in Germany and speaking German to some extent, my pronunciation is good.
Oh, okay. My wife's her first language is French. She's French Canadian. She goes, "Why don't you just learn a little enough French you could talk to my family a little more?" And it would they love that when you speak a little French. So
Pourquoi pas, mon ami? Why not?
yeah, there you go. Right to the head of the class over me.
Babbel's great,
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Just speaking to the
but
phone and everything.
I don't know that Babbel has French Canadian because it's kind of a different animal.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. Getting back to that first major hit album, Morning Dance, did you have any mentors going into that part of your career, which was going to take off pretty big?
I had previously been working with a guy named Phil DeRay, who was running the band that I was in, the Buffalo Jazz Ensemble.
Okay.
Phil was a saxophonist, 10 years older than me. And I'd say in many, many ways, he was my mentor, not just because he taught me about sax and got me through a period of my musical life where I was still learning,
Hmm.
but also because I saw him be a band leader and run a very complex organization. He formed this thing called the Buffalo Jazz Ensemble. He actually got FEMA money for it.
Oh wow.
Recently in Buffalo back then, in the late 60s, there had been terrible riots, and the black part of town had been really wrecked. There was a lot of racial antagonism. So Phil, being a jazz musician and working with both races in Buffalo,
Hmm.
said, I got an idea. Why don't we have a band that's 50-50 white and black? We play in both the hood and on the west side, the
Right.
Italian west
Right.
side. And he applied to the government that this was part of a cultural rebuilding. And he got 12 musicians, myself amongst them, paid by the US government to play concerts all over Buffalo. Now, I saw him manage this entire thing, manage 6 black guys and 6 white guys that didn't always see head to head. I, in all those ways, I saw how the right attitude and a sense of fairness will conquer a lot.
Needs to be implemented more often now, these days especially. Yeah.
I cannot speak of these days.
Yeah. Neither can I. We're being watched. Who knows? Yeah.
Perchance.
Yeah, that's right. But you've always kept that in your band. You've got all different races, different country players. Originally, you guitarist originally from Cuba, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's as American as it gets.
right.
From Cuba at 7, but yeah, Julio did retain a lot of his Caribbean roots. I don't know, it wasn't intentional; just kind of happened that way.
Right.
Um, and a nice thing about the music scene, generally speaking, not 100%, is that it really is a meritocracy.
Mhm.
It really how good you play counts for so much more than what your family's background is. Believe me. I mean, at least in music, I couldn't care less. I just want to hear good.
What would be some things that would kind of not be good things musicians to play in a group like yourself? Things that maybe taking too much space in there, or are there things right away, the musicians, this isn't a fit? I mean, I know you got your band,
I
but you
do think of Spyro a little bit like a basketball team.
okay.
Um, we're a passing team.
Hmm.
We got a lot of guys that score 18 points. You
Right.
know, what we don't need is somebody coming in and hogging the basket and not passing the ball around. We do really great as a team.
Hmm.
Uh, so as a metaphor, I sort of see us as being, you know, that basketball team that is so much bigger than the sum of its parts.
Right. And you could see that on stage. I mean, you're introducing the players, giving them ample time to show their different
And
solos and stuff.
we've had the this wonderful chance to play together. I mean,
Right.
Julio and Scott and I have been playing together for 35 years. Um, yeah, Julio inhales and I exhale. There's so much where stuff is going on behind me, and I don't have to look to see when
Hmm.
things are going to happen. I sense it. I feel it. I know when Julio's going to it. I know the band has got a wonderful sense of, again, for the basketball metaphor, we do a
Hmm.
lot of behind the back passing. We know where the other guy is.
That's right. Little Magic Johnson style.
Uh,
Yeah.
Ever. But getting back, sometimes I do look at the band and I go, oh, gee, you couldn't have put an American band better together here. We have an American black, we have a Caribbean black, we have a Latino, we have a Jew, and then we got this white guy keyboardist,
Right.
but none of that was intentional. But
Hmm.
yeah, I love it. I love it. It's a great presentation.
Right. So Chris Fisher replaced Tom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yes.
Chris has played with some buddies of mine before Spyro, the Chops Horns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris was a uh, Chris had played with a lot of people, and
Right.
that's because Chris is good.
Yeah. I saw an interview. Part of it, you told whoever was interviewing that you're going to really like our keyboard player. So you weren't lying.
No, and uh, you know, Schumann is, in my opinion, one of the great keyboard masters of my generation.
Mhm.
He's not given the credit that Herbie or Chick or even a Brad Meldau or many other keyboardists are given, but he is that. He is ultra talented, wonderfully musical, super disciplined keyboardist. Chris is a little wild compared to Tom.
Okay.
Chris goes off the reservation. Chris will play notes that might not fit. Uh, but his spirit in attacking the music is so joyful,
Hmm.
um, that, in a way, Spyro Gyra without Tom Schumann will never be the same. But the version with Chris Fisher is a hoot. It's
Right.
really fun.
And he does a good job of playing the steel drums on the keys, right?
He does all of that. You
Yeah.
know, Tom also was this incredible octopus of a keyboardist. He was playing. When Spyro first started recording, we had horn sections and percussionists and mallet players and this and that. By the 2000s, Tom was covering all of that on his keyboards and
Hmm.
became a tremendous arranger on his keyboards. Well, that's something that is so hard to do. So hard to do. And Chris is doing it. So
Right.
I don't think the band could have continued without severely changing its spots if Chris hadn't been able uh, to cover that thing that Schumann covered, which was orchestrating and arranging the music as it goes by successfully. And he pulls it off, and
Yeah.
so it goes on.
I was reading he played in a Prince tribute band. I'm a big Prince fan, so I saw he played with some of Prince's band members. That's cool. I got to look that up.
Yeah, well, I like it. He's an enthusiast.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Me, after 50 years of playing music, well, like I said, during COVID, I wanted a garden.
Yeah.
But Chris is much younger,
Hmm.
and he is a musical enthusiast. In fact, he's kind of a Spyro Gyra fan,
Hmm.
and he was before he joined the band. And sometimes he sees us through the eyes of a fan, and it's really funny and touching.
Right. Well, I was really curious coming from a radio background myself. When you guys hit with the big early records, where was the airplay primarily coming from? Or was it more widespread than today?
Oh my God, we get no airplay today. I mean, we get digital airplay.
Mhm.
Um, no, it came from this huge bunch of stations playing what was called adult contemporary, and Morning Dance got all over that.
Mhm.
But it also got into pop. I think Morning Dance got to number 11 on the top 100 pop tunes. So it
Mhm.
had to have been getting onto big stations. Um, I think it was a time in radio where stations had personalities and weren't owned in huge conglomerates by, Sinclair or something, or this
Yeah.
or that, where 28 stations are owned by one
Yeah.
individual in Texas, and he makes sure that it's all tested and corporatized and maximized for profit. Well, back in the day of Morning Dance, it was much more individually run radio stations with eclectic people playing stuff. And Morning Dance could never survive in today's musical atmosphere of radio. It simply couldn't. But back then, something as quirky as Morning Dance had a chance because it hadn't been completely made into a business.
Yeah, I was really fortunate because I got into radio in '82, and then I was in, uh, um, traditional corporate radio. I've never had anybody tell me what to play. I just had to play the public service announcement or commercials at a certain time. I could lug my own records in.
You're
So
on a public station.
no, I was on a commercials. I was on a public station, then a commercial, and then I went back to the NPR affiliate in Fairfield. So, but I was thinking back, the commercial station, I brought everything in. I just had to put the commercials in at a specified time.
Probably not anymore if that station
Oh,
exists.
no, long gone. But yeah, it definitely could. I couldn't do that today,
And
unfortunately.
then, I mean, there have been so many changes in radio over the years, but it's almost not an issue anymore for us.
Yeah,
You know, we released a single for 50/50. It went right to number one on Spotify.
yeah,
Now,
right.
you know, that was cool. We
Yeah,
didn't get any
mhm,
radio play.
right,
Uh,
right.
but we held on top 10 on Spotify for month after month after month. Now, I don't know what that means. I know it means we don't get paid much because Spotify doesn't pay
Right,
much.
right.
Maybe all those months would pay the writer $100. Whereas the old thing, you'd get paid 10 times more than that. But that's
Right. Times
not
have
there.
changed. Yeah. I came across Top of the Pops you guys played. That was amazing playing out there. How did that happen?
That was, well, we were a big hit in England in '81, and we
Mhm.
were doing a big tour of England, and they hit us with lots and lots of television. So Top of the Pops was the weekly show that people went on, and it was always lip syncing.
Mm, yeah.
They never had live recording, and we went on that show, and I was in my you know, my attitude filled jazz head at the time. I considered myself an artist.
Right.
And we walk in, and the drums have plastic cymbals, so you can't make noise on them while you're
Oh.
lip syncing.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at this and said, "We're not doing this. We will not. We're not going to fake it.
Right.
We get some microphones in here and record it." That was the first time a live recording was ever done on Top of the Pops.
Wow. I didn't know that. Yeah,
That was
yeah.
the first time live was ever done on that show. They pulled that together because we refused to play otherwise.
Sheila E, she did a real small stint with Spyro Gyra.
Yeah, we our regular percussionist Gerardo Velez had some visa issues, and we had
Oh,
a
okay.
tour of Japan,
Right.
and so we needed a replacement percussionist. And somebody told us about Sheila, so we had Sheila E as a percussionist in Japan, and she's so amazing. I mean, Sheila E is an amazing, amazing musician.
Right.
Um, First night, our regular drummer Eli Konikoff, great drummer,
Mhm.
but fairly simple, fairly straightforward drummer. Sheila sits down on his drums, and like just everybody's jaw drops to the floor, and Eli has to walk over and say, "Don't do that! Get off my drums!" Um, she was so Yeah, she's just such a great musician. It was a real treat to get to play with her.
She was telling me that this is in later in the 80s, after Prince, she did a couple records after with Prince, and she said she was playing drums so hard all these years she had a collapsed lung while she was driving in LA, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
she when she worked with us, this is a young Sheila E.
Mhm.
And she was as buff and fit as I had ever seen anybody. I remember giving her a hug, and like it was like hugging steel cables. I
Wow.
mean, she was so braided, muscular.
Right.
And as a joke, I'm a fairly little guy. I'm 5'6", and she's not a big girl.
Right.
Um, as a joke, I'm standing there to say, "Come on, Sheila, lift me, do a lift." So I put my elbows like this, and she lifts me up like this, and then boom! And the next thing I know, I'm being held by this little girl above her head.
Wow.
So strong. Anyway,
Dang.
like I say, it was a real treat and a real honor because she's so great. I've seen her and do some Latin things that just knock my socks off.
Yeah, just won a Grammy off of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
just
last record. Yeah.
she's so effortless.
Well, she's not wearing heels on stage anymore. So some things have taken a toll, I think. She-
I think that all percussionists, she's not a conguero. I don't know. I wonder if you change this in Spanish, conguero. I wonder if a female is a conguera, but neither here nor there. People that play the congas, they beat their hands up bad,
Right.
and often by older age, they can't play anymore because they've just smashed their hands to smithereens. Now Sheila is more of a timbali player. She's
Mhm.
playing with sticks,
Right.
so I don't think she would have the same wear and tear.
Right. So yeah, amazing musician. And I want to switch into something of you playing the saxophone. The double saxophones. Um, is there a reason choosing one hand for the other and playing the alto and soprano?
Yeah,
Okay.
um, the alto's on a strap. The soprano is simply being held up with my right hand,
Okay.
free. So my right hand is much stronger than my left hand. So
Okay.
I need my right hand to be able to play soprano without a strap where the alto is hanging. It's just a matter of where the strength is in the hands. But also I'm just used to doing it that way. I finger regular on the soprano, and it's kind of easy for me to finger the same notes on the alto on the other side. Um, and it's more amazing than it really is. To me, it's a bit gimmicky, but
Uh-huh.
I can't believe how much people respond to it. So
I
the
know.
heck,
Yeah. That's, you could
entertainer.
tell.
Well, why don't I? It doesn't cost me anything to play two saxes for 20 seconds.
That's right. So you'll keep it going in the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're known for inviting other musicians who aren't in your band for collaborations on your own records. When did you start doing that? And what goes into that
Well, that
thinking?
really was us coming out of Buffalo.
Mhm.
We didn't come out so much of a band as we came out as a production team. Jeremy and I, and my buddy Rich Calandra. And we went to New York City, and our idea was, let's do some of these songs with the best of the best. So we were hiring Steve Gadd and Marcus Miller and Will Lee and the Brecker brothers and the best studio musicians in New York to play on that second album,
Mm-hmm.
along with our band members. And that got us into the habit of never feeling any embarrassment about bringing guests on records, or
Okay.
or even making changes in the band sometimes.
And you played on other people's records as well.
Yeah, some.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
wasn't my thing. I mean, I've played on Bob James records. I've played on Orleans. I've played on
Well, Dream Theater, right? You guys did.
Dream Theater.
Right.
Dream Theater, I only played on that because they were recording at my recording studio.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was downstairs while they were upstairs, and somebody just said, "You want to try a solo?" I walked upstairs. I played the solo. I walked downstairs. That's how my relationship with them started.
Another day at the office.
Well, no, well, another day in my office,
Right.
but that solo is a really good solo on that record, and it's good because there was no mystery to me when I heard it. I immediately said, "Oh, I know what I got to do on that," and it was all very, it was one take, and no no mental blockage, no problems. So yes, all as natural as singing in the shower.
I didn't mean it was that easy. I just meant like, hit the one take and on to the next
Often,
thing.
often it's not that easy. A band calls you up and says, "We want you to take a solo," and you take a solo, and they go, "Could you be a little rougher? Could you be a little this? Could you be a little that?" And then it turns into a tail chasing venture that can get downright, difficult.
Mm.
And then you go in the room and they like it, and you go, "I don't like the way it sounds." Whereas this was one of those things where I walked in, I heard it, I played it, I walked out, I listened to it, I said, "Boy, that sounds awesome. Have a nice night, guys."
Hmm.
That was it.
Wow. How do being one of the primary or the primary songwriter of Spyro Gyra, how do you take your own tunes back to the band to flesh them out or teach them a new track?
Oh, that really depends on the era because
Okay.
the technology changed over the years. By now, I wouldn't come into the band without a nicely demoed, example of what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Uh, I'm Some people in the band do those demos to the point where you could just use them on records. I don't do that. But I make it really clear what I'm going for.
Do you have
That's the
any? Yeah.
I work
Hmm.
I work it out in front of the computer here, and
Oh, okay.
I'm playing and playing it back. I have a microphone for sax. I play saxophone along with it, and I experiment. I might call Julio and say, "Julio, come on up and listen to what I'm doing." He might do the same for me. Um, but mostly when people write, they do it solo, and then they bring it to the band in an incomplete form with the hope that the band ups the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You've Spyro Gyra gotten in good with City Winery. How many cities have you played? A bunch of cities at the wineries, right?
Let's see: Boston, New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Nashville. Yeah, we've played a lot of wineries.
Yeah.
It's a nice venue for the people that like to see us.
Right.
They're very
Eat
comfortable
some
there.
good food. Yeah. Before I bid you adieu, I wanted to ask you about the Miles Davis. You did some opening dates. You did a pretty nice tour with them, right, over in Europe.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, maybe about 3 months. A quirk of Miles is that even though Miles was the big act,
Hmm.
Miles demanded to go on first, always.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we closed for Miles Davis all of those shows. And in some cases, over in Europe, people were just there to see Miles. That
Oh,
was like it was like Michael Jackson, and then following Michael Jackson is the Fifth Dimension. You
right.
know, that bad example. The Fifth Dimension were great,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. A lesser known act.
Like, hey, we're going to go home. Miles is done, and we faced a lot of that until we started loading up the front of our set with all the powerhouse stuff we had to hold
Oh,
crowds,
okay.
and it started to work. It
Was
started
there
to
a was there a long delay in between his set and yours, or it just kind of went on and
no, it
yeah,
would all everything would because Miles insisted on going on first, and also Miles was always late
yeah, yeah.
when we were going on. Miles would clear the back of the house. We didn't really get to meet Miles because Miles had a policy that everybody, including the warm-up band that followed him, Spyro, uh, we weren't to be in the backstage area when he was there. We had to be in our dressing room when he walked by. He wouldn't. There was none of this. Mr. Davis, I love your music. No, none of that. Um, but we were very stubborn. The first 4 dates, and they were huge dates: Red Rocks, Colorado,
Hmm.
Carnegie Hall, New York. I mean, big dates. Um, we sent him a big thing of flowers every night with thanks for the music you've given us written on it. Every night, every show. Around the fifth show, he's getting ready to go on. We're all in the dressing room, hiding from Miles because we're not allowed to be out there. And, and he opens the door and he goes, Spyro Gyra. Okay. Closes the door, walks on. So we had the Pope's blessing, and yeah, I in things got looser later on touring with Miles because Miles got less capable.
Right.
Miles had to be helped around, um, and we caught the part of his career where he was the most physically impaired
Hmm.
for whatever reason. So we hardly caught Miles at his height, but we caught the Miles Davis phenomenon. We played European concerts where Miles was like Frank Sinatra or Michael Jackson, or you know, tens of thousands of people would want to see him, and we were closing the show.
You were the fifth dimension.
We were the walkout music
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's right. Hey, was Foley playing bass in his band at the time?
I don't recall.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because
I think,
he's a
um,
friend of mine. He played with one of the later bands. He
did he
played with
play with
Miles.
Bill Evans in the band at the time?
I don't think so. Yeah, but yeah, he was like one of the latest.
A lot of great players in those bands. Miles would bring in Bob Berg and Mincer and Bill Evans, the saxophonist. Really great guys, but he was ruthless to them. Wasn't that nice to his band.
Yeah, yeah, we had Bill Evans years ago on the show. Yeah, he was a good guy. Yeah. So Jay Beckenstein, I got to thank you all these years enjoying Spyro Gyra's music, and it's it's weird. I've had a lot of bands recently. They're going on their 50th or just past their 50th year in the music business, and you guys are doing amazing things and still going really, really strong.
I I've yet to feel uh, any impairment in my ability to play, or for that matter, to travel to play. So fingers crossed. As long as I'm healthy, Spyro Gyra will keep going. It's
Hmm.
my intention to keep it going as long as it's performing at a high level.
Yeah, and you got some great musicians, and you don't insist they hide away from you before the gig.
No, as a matter of fact, the older I get, the more I need them. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I don't want to take every solo. Heck no.
So Derry, New Hampshire tomorrow. I think you're coming down to Sony in New York City.
All
Off the
46.
top of my head, Infinity in Connecticut.
The first Camden, Maine,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
then Hartford, Connecticut.
Right. You've played in Norfolk, the Infinity, probably, I'm sure.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Out in the
that's a
woods.
that's a nice little place.
Yeah, yeah. It's got a lot of history to it. So
Yeah, we were there when the power went out,
oh,
and Infinity Hall was the only place with a generator. So not only were we playing there, the entire town gathered around the building.
oh. Well,
Not
you had
quite,
a
but yes,
yeah,
we were the only lights in town.
right. All right, my friend, you travel safe. Say hi to the band, and
Okay,
let's go for 60, God willing, right?
I'm
Yeah.
in if
Yeah,
he's in.
that's it. Yeah, that's right. So Jay Beckenstein, Spyro Gyra, SpyroGyra.com. Go see them. They're going to be everywhere. They always are. And something you should really be proud of yourself. We are. So thanks.
We are.
Thanks, Jay.